Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out at dawn to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. Going out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too go out to my vineyard, and I will give you what is just." And so they went off. And he went out again around noon, around 3, and did likewise. Going out around 5 o'clock, he found others standing around, and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" And they answered, "Because no one has hired us." And he said to them, "You too go out into my vineyard." When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Summon the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and ending with the first." When those who had started out about 5 o'clock came, each received the usual daily wage. So when the first came, they thought that they would receive more, but each one of them got the usual wage. On receiving it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last ones worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who bore the day's burden and the heat." He said to the one of them in reply, "My friend, I am not cheating you. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what is yours and go. What if I wish to give this last one the same as you? Or am I not free to do as I wish with my own money? Are you envious because I am generous? Thus the last will be first, and the first will be last." The Gospel of the Lord.
This morning we celebrate the feast of St. Pius X. Pius X follows the papacy of Pope Leo XIII. Pope Leo XIII is the one who had this vision of the devil being handed the church to sift for about 100 years. And in response, he wrote the prayer, St. Michael the Archangel. And then he turns around and he appoints as cardinal, around the time of the construction of this church, by the way, he appoints as cardinal, this cardinal, his name would be Sarto, which, by the way, the Sarto Center is named after him, because of the Pius X Institute that founded the Sarto Center as a place for retreat and renewal in the vision of Pius X. So he would become, so this cardinal made by Pope Leo would become Pope Pius X, succeeding Pope Leo. It's interesting that his motto became "Renew all things in Christ," and he did exactly that. On the heels of Pope Leo XIII's concern for the safety and the well-being of the church, however, understanding that the gates of hell would not prevail against the church, but felt it necessary to begin a process of renewal, Pope Pius took that mantle. And I can't review everything. If you go online and you look at what he did, I don't think he slept very much as a pope. He had a very, very hardworking and prolific papacy, but here are some of the highlights. He encouraged Eucharistic devotion and actually started to encourage people to go to daily Mass. He he insisted that the age of First Communion should be at least at the age of reason. So he made popular children receiving First Holy Eucharist. He encouraged an increase in Marian devotion. He saw to the writing of a new catechism that was designed to be used as an instruction with questions and answers. Some of you might be familiar with that version of the catechism. He also called for a renewal of sacred music. Can you believe that, Cynthia? He called for this renewal of sacred music, and especially he wanted to promote the more extended use of Gregorian chant. Interesting. Because he wanted to renew everything, even especially the liturgy. He saw that as the heart. So you have this very industrious pope I see him as cast in the image of the vineyard owner that we see today. The vineyard owner who goes out and works very hard to get workers for the vineyard. But it's not just about workers for the vineyard. It's about workers who, because they're in a vineyard, they're not only leading a productive life, but they have security of the vineyard to sustain them and to give them a place of refuge. It's a beautiful arrangement. Some of you might know Eddie Andari. Eddie Andari is from the Middle East, Lebanese. And I was discussing this passage with him one day, and he said to me, we were talking about how Jesus, hired these workers even toward the end of the day. So I said to Eddie, I said, you came from that area. I said, were these lazy men who just didn't want to get a job, but Jesus had to twist their arm to get him into the vineyard? And he said, no. He said the people who were not hired were probably older and not as physically fit as the young. And so in our culture, he said, those people would not be hired. At the end of the day, they would not get any work. But he said the master of the vineyard hired even them, those who seemed most incapable and most unworthy were also invited to come into the vineyard. What an interesting twist from the social milieu of that part of the world and their work ethic, which shows you it's one way that reveals how insistent that the master was on getting people into the vineyard. And in a sense, that ethic that Eddie shared with me is confirmed by the fact that he doesn't care how much he pays anybody. He wants to get people in the vineyard, and he's not willing to discriminate on pay. And so, and what you see here also is everyone is supposed to work in the vineyard. Everyone. The vineyard's for everybody. No one is excused from being a disciple. No one is excused of working in the vineyard and promoting the gospel. No one is excused from living a life that reflects the gospel and becomes iconic of it in different milieus. No one's excused from this. Everyone is called to the vineyard. And the master is so insistent on this that even if he has to get you into the vineyard at the last moment, literally when you're on your deathbed, for the sake of snatching a soul away from the devil, he'll do it. And he has no compunction about it. Even if other people think, how come he gets in like that at the last minute? None of your business. I'm merciful. There is a chance for all of us to enter the vineyard. Many graces are being poured out to enter the vineyard. And if we don't enter the vineyard, it's not because the master didn't make great sacrifices to get us there. It's because perhaps we are wanting in our sacrifice to be participants in the vineyard.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui